another major story that we need to give attention to, and I think again, everybody's praying for the people dealing with the storm in Florida and parts of the East Coast, Georgia, Savannah, Charleston area, in South Carolina, that are preparing as well. So we're tracking all of that as more information. We get more updates for you tomorrow from some Florida officials on the air. You can imagine how busy they are today. But this is another huge story. What's happened to the Nord Stream, both 1 and 2, the pipeline. So the functioning pipeline and the one that was not online yet, both it appears to be acts of sabotage. I want to go right to Rick Grenell, part of our team at the ACLJ. Rick, you got the Russians basically acknowledging, blaming NATO or blaming Ukraine sabotage, and you have NATO and the United States pushing. It looks like pointing the finger towards Russia for the cause of this. But what there is agreement on by everyone is that this was not an accident.
Yeah, look, it was not an accident. This is very deep water. Let's remember that to be able to go down and touch these pipes and to get access to them, you have to have the ability to go very deep in the ocean and break through concrete, because the pipe is not only very thick, obviously for deep water movement, but it's encased in concrete. And so to be able to somehow penetrate it means that you not only have to have the know-how, but you have to have the equipment and the people that can actually go down and do it. So there are very few countries that could actually have access to this to be able to do it. Several of them are in Europe, and we know the others around the world. I'm more concerned about what this sabotage means going forward. Yep. Really, the lack of energy now is a very serious issue for Europe, and specifically for Germany, a manufacturing-based economy. And this is not good for the world economy, nor for our relations with Europe.
Rick, I said that I said this earlier in the broadcast, but this sabotage of the pipelines it's like warfare. I mean, it's energy warfare that we're seeing here, and I wonder what the repercussions of all and the ramifications of all this are at the end of the day. I mean, Russia was threatening to do this anyways, but actually doing it would have been something different. Now you've got the sabotage, whoever did it, and what does this do to Europe in, say, 8 weeks when it's cold?
Look, it's already been happening. The squeeze has already been happening. Chancellor Merkel was wrong. Donald Trump was right about the leverage that Russia would put forward. I think it's really important, Jay, to talk about how we got here. There were sanctions on the pipeline. That pipeline was not going to be operational under the Trump sanctions. And when Joe Biden came in, he worked with the Senate Democrats, and they dropped the Trump sanctions on this pipeline. Quickly thereafter, it was a green light to Putin, and we saw the war in Ukraine. So now what we see is a lot of kvetching and hand-wringing from the Biden administration as to, oh my gosh, how did this happen? The media need to talk about how we got here and why the Democrats dropped the Trump sanctions. That's really important. But now I think, we're in a position where the Germans are desperate for energy, and they're going to start cutting deals. And I'm concerned that they won't keep to their moral compass on where to get the energy. They're going to put Germany first and do everything they can to get the energy, and regardless of where it comes from.
Where will that be? Where would the Germans go, Rick?
Look, my concern was always that they were going to find a way to restart the pipeline and to try to find a way to say to the world, well, we're in this position and we've been able to work through the diplomatic issues with Russia. They want this energy coming from Russia, and the Germans never doubt the fact that the Germans will go into all sorts of exercises to be able to do this. They're going to have to speed up now U.S. LNG, some sort of energy from the Middle East, Qatar maybe. They're going to have to increase all sorts of supply, including they're going to have to restart their nuclear energy facilities. They have a couple. They put them on hold. They got to bring those up very fast. This was a political decision of Chancellor Merkel, and she put them in this terrible position, and now they're paying for it.
And they're paying for it, but Rick, when the economic effects will also then reach us. I mean, so it's not just what happens to Europe. This will directly impact the United States. And there's some thought. I mean, no one is clear who is responsible to, but there are people pointing the finger saying this could be the Biden administration too. I mean, we will see, I think, as this develops, we might find out who is ultimately responsible. But certainly there's all this finger pointing. But what we do know is it's going to economically impact us here at home as well.
There's no question about it. Germany is a manufacturing-based economy. The German business community functions very closely with America. You think about pharmaceuticals, you think about cars, really all types of manufacturing. We are intertwined with Germany when it comes to the German business community. A lot of German companies employ massive amounts of U.S. Citizens. I'll give you one example. The great German airline Lufthansa employs 15,000 Americans. You look at Tennessee, where ACLJ is based, you look at South Carolina, and you look at Alabama, and you have the headquarters for the three largest German auto manufacturers, VW, BMW, and Daimler, right here in America, employing tens of thousands of Americans. This is going to absolutely impact us, which is why we were so tough on Germany to move away from the leverage that Russia was creating on their energy source and to diversify their energy as quickly as possible. They didn't listen to Donald Trump. They should have.
I want to turn our attention to Iran. We've been talking about this earlier in the broadcast. Masih Alinejad, a human rights activist, has been very public with 1 million people taking to the streets. I want to play what she said about the United States propping up she calls them the murderers. Take a listen.
You're a decent man, Jake Sullivan, when you condemn morality police and the brutality of the police who are killing people. I have a simple question. How come at the same time we don't want you to save Iranian women? Iranian women are brave enough to bring democracy themselves, to save themselves. But we want you to stop saving our murderers. That's all. Yeah. That's all.
And Rick, when you were in office, the fact is the Iranian regime was, buckling. And now we're about to, if the Biden administration gets their way, prop them back up again. And I think what Masih said is absolutely correct. We're paying the murderers.
First of all, let's say God bless to Masih. Let's say a prayer for her protection, because the Iranian regime is absolutely after her. We know that. She is brave and courageous. What I would say is this has been a coordinated Biden administration policy. We saw at the same time that Jake Sullivan was on Meet the Press talking about having two separate tracks. The State Department loves this, separate tracks where we negotiate with the Iranian regime and we condemn the violence in the streets. I hate that policy because I don't think you can decouple when a regime that you're sitting across the table with negotiating with is systematically killing gays and women and doing human rights abuses. I don't want to sit across the table and negotiate for billions of dollars given to this regime, which will only further their terrorist activities. But when Jake Sullivan said that they can do this separately on Meet the Press, that wasn't a mistake, because the State Department was absolutely Ned Price saying the same thing. So this was a coordinated effort from Blinken and from Wendy Sherman and from Joe Biden and Susan Rice to say, we're going to do both. And it's shameful. It's really, they should be condemned. They missed the 2009 Green Revolution already, remember.
Right. And Jordan said earlier, it took 10 years for the Iranian people to get to the streets again, and we're about to see it get crushed. The fact is, the largest exporter of terrorism.
Of U.S. dollars.
Yes, crushed because of U.S. dollars. Largest exporter of terrorism in the world is Iran. And you're right. The civil protests, the human rights protests that are going on right now in Iran could be crushed by the United States cutting a deal. Yeah,
I mean, Rick, as always, we appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. Thanks, Rick. Check out ACLJ.org. Rick writes pieces for us as well there. But what I encourage people to understand here is, like Rick said, you cannot have your cake and eat it too in this situation. You have to make choices. You can't negotiate a nuclear weapons deal with a regime that you're trying to also support the protests for that want to call for regime change. It doesn't work. You're not going to give money over to a regime you don't think is going to be there the next day. And by the way, they're not going to accept the deal.
No.
So what they will accept, though, is give us the money and we can go oppress our people. But we'll also remember, you don't even have to oppress so much as you give them this influx of cash, food gets a little cheaper, the inflation goes down, people aren't as willing to risk their lives in the street.
That's exactly right. And by the way, the ACLJ
So you placate the people.
Yeah, uniquely positioned here. We have an office in the Middle East, in Jerusalem, the heart of the Middle East, that works on all of these issues. Because of your support of the ACLJ, we're able to do that. I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ at aclj.org. Your contributions and donations make a huge difference. aclj.org. Also, follow us on Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, at Jay Sekulow, at Jordan Sekulow, at Logan Sekulow, at ACLJ. We encourage you to do that. We'll be back with a final segment. More action at the UN coming right up.